Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jeanne and today I'm going to be doing a very highly requested video on how I take my notes. So here we have my grade 12 biology binder from second semester that I just used. There's my homework notebook and my good old periodic table, and these are the folders that I have for every single unit that I'm doing. And as you can see, I take my note-taking pretty seriously, and I made sure I took really wonderful notes for every single lesson that we had. And I think this was a really big factor in how I was able to be successful in this class and many of my other classes. So as you can see, we have the electron transport chain, citric acid cycle. I was really proud of this one. So yeah, I'm just showing you guys a brief overlook of what my notes look like in this class. So this is my homework notebook. I made sure to do all my homework every single day because a lot of the times my teachers will pull questions from the homework to be on tests and quizzes. But enough of this, let's move on to what I actually use to take my notes. So as you probably have noticed, I like to use grid paper or graph paper, but this actually isn't the kind I normally like. The kind I use is a lot thicker. I also need to use pens, and I'm a big sucker for the Muji pens. They're so smooth, and I use the 0.5 pens. Besides the black pen, I also like to have two colors with me, one for titles and one for keywords. Another one of my favorite pens is the V5 High Tech Point pen. It is an ink pen that is also 0.5 in thickness, and it lasts a very long time. Gotta have a pencil. I love mechanical pencils, and this one is by Muji, and it is my favorite. This is how I hold my pencil. I feel like everyone holds their pencil differently. And I also gotta have a ruler for margins, diagrams, boxes, and just making my notes look a lot cleaner. And whiteout because I make a lot of mistakes and I don't use erasable pens. I should probably use erasable pens. So the first thing I like to do is create a margin, and I do this with my ruler and black pen and just creating a margin, which is just a straight line. And it consists of around like 5 squares. I then write the date in the top left hand corner, and I always do day, month, and year, and I like to use a clean square font. And then I write the unit and subject that we are doing the note on. I then write the lesson title at the top middle of the page in a very clean font, and I like to make sure that both sides are even so that the note looks a lot neater and nicer. So one square below the title, I like to include any background information or introductory information. However, the space is sometimes blank for me. And in the same color pen I used for the title, I like to write all my subtitles in this color pen in all caps. And my note-taking process actually begins the night before the lecture. I like to open up the textbook and make my own point form notes from the textbook because the teacher can technically test anything in the textbook, so I like to make my own notes and make sure I have all the information down because sometimes their PowerPoints are a little lacking in information. So that means I include lots of detail, but obviously omitting insignificant words and phrases. And I try to be as concise as possible. I definitely spelled that wrong here, but not omitting too much. And a good strategy I've adopted is thinking, if I were making a test, what questions would I ask? For key terms, I like to use a different color pen, and by separating definitions, I can easily detect them when I'm reviewing my notes later on. And using the same different color, I like to write out important words and phrases in the middle of sentences so that they stick out to me when I'm studying and I can remember them easier. I stopped using highlighters because they always smudged my pen ink and I was too impatient to wait for them to dry, though I use them quite often for handouts. Sorry for my messy handwriting. I was sitting at a really awkward angle while I was filming this because my room is tiny. Diagrams are a really big part of my note-taking process, and I always like to outline diagrams with a box using the same different color I used for definitions so that they stand out. I normally copy my diagrams straight from the textbook because they're the most accurate and visually appealing in my opinion, and I like to draw them with a lot of detail, and it helps reinforce my understanding of what's actually going on in the diagram, and I'll use my other colored pens to make them more visually appealing, and this is really important if you are a visual learner. Make sure to label them and include brief explanations so you know what's actually going on. And this can take a lot of time, but in my opinion, it is absolutely worth it and really, really important if you are going into sciences, because diagrams are very, very common. Let's take a brief intermission and look at some of the diagrams that I made while I was in high school. So this unit is aerobic cellular respiration, which is quite content heavy if you are familiar. And because everything was online, learning all of it by myself was kind of daunting, but I found making really nice notes and diagrams helped with my understanding of the material a lot. And I actually studied less because in making the diagrams I was unconsciously studying and reviewing, and it made it a lot easier and more efficient. So let's move on to why I made this margin. We're going to need our pencil for this. This is where I take notes during the lecture. Sometimes a teacher will want you to know other extra material outside of what's in the textbook, and I also like to write down questions here that I may have to ask the teacher after class. It's also good to keep track of what your teacher places emphasis on because it's most likely what's going to be on the test. The most important thing in note-taking for me is consistency. Having a consistent note theme looks nicer and motivates me to study. I can't draw well, but I like having clean-looking notes rather than fancy fonts or designs that might distract me from what's actually important. And though it seems like a waste of time to some, I credit my habitual note-taking to a lot of my academic success. However, in the end, everyone learns differently. Do what works for you. This is just what works for me. And that is it. That's how I take my notes. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Please like and subscribe to my channel for future content, and make sure to follow me on all my socials. They will all be linked down below.